Warren Kelly.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And my question is for the Premier this morning. Back in the spring, Premier, when you were working on a budding relationship with the NDP, my party and my leader were providing advice you needed. You grabbed a budget lifeline from the NDP at that time. How's that working out for you? Now we're bailing you out on your teachers' legislation. The PC party stands alone as the one group, Speaker, with a proper plan and a compass. We know where Ontario has to go, controlling costs, dealing with an out-of-control public sector, fixing arbitration, sourcing services privately where that is advantageous. All ideas that we have put forward, all ideas you have rejected. And now, absent any indication via a yet-to-be-tabled fall economic statement, McGuinty's Ontario is a rudderless ship with you at the helm wanting the NDP to get down below and row. Will you finally admit, Premier, that the PC party has been the only constant and that you should have listened to us last spring instead of partnering up with the NDP and throwing bricks at us?
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Again, as a reminder, when I stand, you sit. Premier.
I see the clarity bus outside. And I thought we were friends, Speaker. I thought we were friends. We were working so well together on the putting students first legislation. Speaker, our responsibility in a minority position, of course, is to find common ground wherever we can. Sometimes we have to tack a little bit to the left. Other times we have to tack a little bit to the right. But overall, we're charged with moving forward.
With a rudder.
One of the things that we are particularly responsible for, speakers, is for ensuring that we bring forward workable solutions. Now, I would say to my honourable colleague with all sincerity that they have put forward many solutions which are simply unworkable. Yeah. We remain very much interested in continuing to work with him on a number of fronts, but if they bring forward some workable solutions, Speaker, then we, of course, will be very, very interested in sitting down with him and finding a way to move us forward.
Thank you. Supplementary.
For over 8 years, Premier, you governed by photo op and political opportunism while Ontario's debt and deficit grew to historic proportions. This past spring, you introduced a budget that ignored Ontario PC recommendations to freeze government wages across the board and bring some semblance of even-handedness to the way Ontario's finances are managed. You delayed implementing a wage freeze until you decided to scream fire, and that was roughly 2 weeks ago. Your party delayed doing what was necessary in the spring budget, just like the NDP is now delaying and obstructing legislation to implement a wage freeze for one segment of the public sector. Meanwhile, the Ontario PC party is the only party that has been consistent in providing leadership that Ontario needs to get us out of the mess you got us into. When will you finally take advice from the official opposition and steer Ontario back on course?
Speaker, I see things, as you might imagine, I see things a little bit differently. My interpretation of recent events in this legislature were at first the PCs were missing in action, Speaker. Yeah. They went subterranean. Only recently have they surfaced. They've decided that it is in the public interest that we engage wherever possible together in developing good public policy. They made some specific requests for changes and are putting students first legislation. We adopted those recommendations, Speaker, and now we are working together. Again, if there are workable solutions, Speaker, we are more than interested in receiving those and finding common ground. But if they are unworkable, like so many of those solutions put forward by the PC, Speaker, then we simply can't go there.
Final supplementary.
Premier, you shoveled money at the teachers' unions for 8 years, and they supported you and your party in every election bid. What a coincidence. The unions may not like the medicine we prescribe, but at least they know where we stand. You know where we stand. Ontarians know where we stand. The NDP would spend us into oblivion, and you're just as happy to let us drift into oblivion. The Ontario PC party is the only constant. We know how to steer the ship. When are you getting on board?
I think that's really a rant dressed up as a question. Speaker, I appreciate the enthusiasm. But I disagree strongly with the underlying philosophy. In the context of that question, of course, Speaker, there was yet another attack on unions and the union movement in Ontario. That's not an approach that we can support. We think it's important that we all work together in the greater public interest. We also say, in contrast to the NDP Speaker, that it is time for us to call a halt to wage increases. But we think the most important way to get there, the responsible way to get there, is ideally at first through negotiation.
That's right.
But as we made clear in our last budget, Speaker, if that should fail us, if we can't achieve our fiscal objectives by means of negotiation, then we will resort to other measures, as we have with respect to Education Ontario and our Putting Students First legislation, Speaker. So again, I appreciate the enthusiasm offered by my honourable colleague, but unless it's a workable solution, we simply can't work with him.